Now we go into our next glomerulonephritis, and this one's an interesting one. This is called DPGN. The reason I call this interesting is for two main reasons. Number one, it's a fact that really, in terms of your presentation, it'll be nephritic, nephrotic. And by that I mean, there might be hematuria and RBC casts that are involved in hypertension. But there might be actual protein loss of being greater than 3.5 grams of protein. There might be lipid that is then risen. Interesting. So I just gave you the symptoms in this patient that has components of both nephritic and nephrotic. DPGN will do that. Also, a second important point is that this is the prototype. This is the most common subtype of SLE-induced kidney damage. Now, the other types can have a nephrotic presentation, but what you're keeping in mind is if your patient has SLE and comes back to be positive for anti-double-stranded DNA, the most likely type of kidney damage or glomerulonephritis that you're finding in this patient is going to be DPGN. Now, what you'll have to memorize is DPGN will be subendothelial. Earlier, with PSGN, it was subepithelial. With DPGN, it's subendothelial. Are we clear? Now, I don't care how you do it, you memorize that. This immune complex that's being deposited, where are you? On the side of the blood and capillary lumen, or are you on the side of your urine and your podocyte? Subendothelial will be underneath your endothelial cell in the capillary lumen, between the endothelial cell and the basement membrane. With that said, if you find such a deposition on electron microscopy, what are you going to find on immunofluorescence? You tell me the description. Very good. It's a granular. Next, if you find this to be SLE-induced, then what is this called? A DNA, anti-DNA immunocomplexes, or in other words, anti-double-stranded DNA. You're also going to find activation of your complement pathway, but any immune complex will do that. Now, what you do find in the description is called wire looping of the capillaries, corresponding to subendothelial immune complex. There's going to be neutrophil infiltration with hyaline thrombi in the capillary lumen. There's enough information here for you to properly diagnose your patient with DPGN, look for SLE, and look for anti-double-stranded DNA, and the fact that you have subendothelial deposits giving you a granular pattern. Next, kidneys are major target organ in SLE for DPGN. Your serum ANA test usually has a rim pattern, which then corresponds with, please take a look, anti-double-stranded DNA. How many kidneys do you have? 2. Double-stranded. If it's SLE and antihistone, it's drug-induced SLE, isn't it? And by drug-induced, you might be thinking about, procainamide, might be thinking about hydralazine, isoniazid, and for different reasons, maybe phenytoin. Evolves into chronic renal failure in most cases and ends up being a common cause of death in a patient with SLE is actually chronic renal failure. An important point, please make sure that you're quite familiar with the SLE-induced DPGN issue resulting in chronic renal failure with the various tests that we just walked through.